Hi everybody. So today I'd like to talk about an activity that you can do in early years that introduces the concept of composition to young children. As long as they have some ability to make up a story, they can do this activity. And it also introduces the concept of timbre. So timbre is like the individual signature of an instrument. It's how you can tell one instrument from another. It's made up of different pitches within the note, if that makes sense. And that's how we get that individual voice of the instrument. And so I start by listening to Peter and the Wolf, and it's wonderful if you can get a book. There are lots and lots of different books where they've illustrated the story of Peter and the Wolf. If you go to most children's bookstores and search, you'll probably be able to find some edition of Peter and the Wolf. This one I really like. This particular edition is illustrated by Peter Malone. And then the recording of Peter and the Wolf, which is I think about 10 minutes overall, I could be wrong, which is by Prokofiev. You can find on all streaming platforms lots and lots of different versions. You can also find a lot that have been narrated, many by celebrities too. So if you go into your favorite streaming platform and search, you'll be able to find that as well. I'm sure there are YouTube videos too where they have the illustrated story. There was a Disney version of it a while back too. But it's a very well-known classical piece for children. And what I really like about it, so I'll show you at the back here. And so what this does is what Prokofiev did, is he used a different instrument to represent the different characters in the story. So you can see there we've got am I pointing to the right one? Yes, I am. So this is Peter, the main character, and he's represented by the violins. And then we have a flute for the bird, and we have the oboe for the duck. And if you're familiar with the oboe, you know that's just a perfect instrument for the duck. We've got clarinet for the cat. We've got a bassoon for the grandfather. French horns for the wolf. And I'm just going to say too, for very young children and for who are maybe a little bit sensitive, it can be a little bit scary to hear those French horn sounds. So just something to be aware of, to be very comforting, very sensitive to their needs. And then we have the drums for the hunters. So you can listen to that, and then you can start talking about the timbre of each of the different instruments and discussing why each of the instruments were chosen for that particular character. So, for example, for violins, we might say that they're smooth, warm, soft. Flute, we would say light, airy, again smooth, maybe soft, maybe a little bit more piercing. Oboe, we would say very pinched, very buzzy, sharp sound. Drums, we would say that they're dull. French horn, that's an interesting one. I would say it's got kind of a darker timbre, a very rich timbre. Got a far away kind of a quality because they're literally pointed in the other direction, so that's how they get that nice far away sound. And so there's no real right or wrong way to do it, and it's also really a great opportunity to explore vocabulary as well, and you can get really creative with it. I remember once I had an EA introduce the idea of crunchy versus smooth for different instruments, and I thought that was brilliant. So those are also some words that you can use. After that, what you can do, so what I do is I'll introduce a few very, very basic instruments. And so these are very affordable. These are just some very basic rhythm instruments that you can have, that you can get at most music stores. So I've got a jingle bell here. So for jingle bell, jingly, obviously, we might say bright, We would say quite a clear sound. And then I also have egg maraca here. We might say that what would we say? Crunchy would work for this. Probably fuzzy. I like the word fuzzy for a maraca. We would say it's quite a dull sound. Like it's not like it rings. It doesn't have an echo the same way that the jingle bell kind of is kind of ringing out. Or those handbells. So I have a video with handbells, and that's got a very clear ringing sound, right? This is a duller sound. And then I've also got some rhythm sticks here. These ones have some ridges on it. So they've got two different sounds that you can make. So there's this sound. So we would definitely call it a dull sound, a clacking sound, maybe a dry sound is another word that we would use. But then you can also, right, there's our crunchy sound or a rumbly sound for that. And then I've got these little bongos here. So they got two different pitches, but the same timbre. Right, so we can talk about the difference between timbre and pitch as well with something like this. We know these are drums. We know that's not a flute. We know that's not a maraca, even though they have two different sounds because the pitch is different. But we would say that it's got, again, maybe it's pretty dull sound. We would say maybe dry. Yeah, you can get really creative with it. Then, so let's say you've chosen your 4 rhythm instruments. You can come up with characters for each of the instruments and then write a story. You can do this with one child or you can do it with a small group. And I've done it with a full class. It takes a little while and you have to be really patient with all the different ideas, but you can do this activity with a full class as well. So you come up with a story based on your 4 characters, and then you can tell the story. You can write it down, and either you can say it or the child is older, they can say the story. And then each time a character is speaking or doing something, the child improvises, doing whatever they want, playing the different instruments, and that's their composition right there. And what the thing is too with this activity, I really like to encourage creative autonomy. So even if a child is assigning a character to an instrument that I wouldn't necessarily assign, I just make sure that I ask them about it, and as long as they can explain why they've chosen that particular instrument for that character, then it's all good, right? So for example, I once had a child suggest with the jingle bell that the jingle bell could represent a gorilla, and I said, well, why a gorilla? Because we think it's a smaller sound, a higher sound, and they said because gorillas are shiny and happy. And I thought that was beautiful. So so you can get creative with that too. And yeah, you can record it. You can have them draw pictures to it and make a little video. And it's a great opportunity they've just done a composition without having learned all the harder parts of learning an instrument. So yeah, hope you have fun with that if you try it out. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And have a great day. Bye-bye.